Ohio State enters the 2025 season looking for its fifth quarterback of the Ryan Day era. Of course, Justin Fields kicked it off in 2019 and was a starter in 2020 as well. Then you had C.J. Stroud for 2 years. Then you had Kyle McCord in 2023. And you had Will Howard leading them to a national championship last year. It's a pretty high bar. And now it's time to see if somebody can match it. Heisman Trophy finalists, you got national championship winners, you got 5 stars. Well, you got 5 stars in this room. You got third-year starting quarterbacks in this room. You got everything you can need with Julian Sand, Tavian St. Clair, and Lincoln Keenholz battling to be Ohio State's next starting quarterback. In terms of what we saw in practice, guys just kind of rolled with everybody. I don't know if you can get a great evaluation from what you saw. Ryan Day was talking about there was a lot of routes on air that didn't really go against anybody. So I guess let's turn the conversation to this, Andrew. Do you think Ohio State could potentially name its starting quarterback by the end of the spring based on how Ryan Day talked about it?
No. I think Ryan Day has to say that he's open to it. I think Ryan Day would like to say that he's open to it because there's probably nothing that he would rather more than Julian Sand to come out here and look like second-year C.J. Stroud, right? Like there's nothing he would rather more than to just like watch practice and go, man, this isn't even close. I can't even lie about I can't even fake this being a conversation, right? I can't even fake this being a competition. Like I'm sure the Ohio State coaching staff would love that. They would love having somebody like that, but I don't think naming a starter right now is just going to happen because, it is a condensed schedule. Ryan Day's mentioned that a lot. It is a condensed type of, spring practice.
Still 15 practices. They're just doing them in less weeks.
Yeah, it's still 15 practices, but I think there's going to be a lot of install. It's not going to probably be as intense as it was. Like Ryan Day's mentioned that a lot as well, just because of how long the regular season went. They ended on January 20th, and now it's less than 2 months later, and we're back out here. I don't know the kind of reps you're going to be able to get. And additionally, if you name your starting quarterback on, would that be like April 12th? I mean, you better be sure that that's your starting quarterback because you don't want to get into fall camp and say, this guy's our starting quarterback, and then all of a sudden he falls off, somebody else makes a push. Like what if he says Julian Sand's our guy and it's April 12th and he's the starting quarterback at Ohio State? One, then you run the risk of a transfer portal situation. But two, even if, everybody stays in the room, what happens if Julian Sand gets to fall camp and all of a sudden Lincoln Keenholz is pushing him? And Lincoln Keenholz is right there. Are you going to go back on what you said about Julian Sand being the starting quarterback? I don't know. So, to me, there's a lot of, I guess, unnecessary risk, unnecessary headache, maybe not even a risk, it's just a headache of saying, hey, this is our starting quarterback, unless it's absolutely positively, oh my goodness, this has to be our guy. I just don't know what the benefit of that would be right now.
Stefan, did Ryan Day sound like he was genuinely open to the idea of it, or is it just not logistically a possible outcome?
I think he sounded to me open to the idea. I mean, he said if someone separates themselves and someone separates themselves, I think the most likely outcome is Ohio State's coaches walk out of the spring knowing who their starting quarterback is, but I think us, fans, whoever it may be, isn't going to be informed of that. Like, I don't think Ryan Day is formally going to name someone a starting quarterback like we saw. I think Steve Sarkisian did it a few weeks ago with Arch Manning, where he was just basically like, Arch Manning's going to be this team's starting quarterback. So we know at least who one quarterback's going to be in that Ohio State-Texas game. We'll see who the other guy is. I think everyone believes it's going to be Julian Sand. I mean, Julian, like you said, they were kind of rotating reps around, so it's hard to say, like, this guy was working with the ones. There was one drill that they did where it was just a snapping drill, quarterbacks and centers. Julian Sand was with Carson Hinsman. Lincoln Keenholz was with Josh Padilla. So that, to me, says there's number one, there's number two. So I think Day's open to the idea of knowing who the starting quarterback is going to be at the end of the spring. I just don't know if he thinks it's in his best interest to formally announce it.
They had one drill where they had all three of the quarterbacks throwing at the same time, so you can't take anything from that. You mentioned the center drill. Every drill where there was a line, Julian Sand went first, Lincoln went second, Tavian went third, who obviously he's a true freshman, except one. The last thing we saw was a half-team period because it was literally just the offense. Lincoln Keenholz went first in that drill, and then Tavian went in that drill after that, and then Tavian St. Clair went last. I'm open to it because it's not about interest and what's the best interest. If Julian Sand or Lincoln Keenholz or even Tavian St. Clair are slinging it and they get through 15 practices and it's like, oh, okay, well, that's our guy, then you can't deny that. There's no point in denying that. In fact, it's probably a benefit to it. Of course, the other way around, sure, you can risk guys getting helping in the transfer portal. You can risk maybe you name a guy publicly and then the other guy takes some steps and then you see some things in fall camp that maybe change your mind. Well, then that guy was never far enough ahead in the beginning for you to even do that. The reason I asked those questions was, is the structure going to provide a chance for it to even be possible? Could a player be good enough to do it? Maybe. Right? But is the structure going to allow it? And Ryan Day was talking about structure a lot and how it's a lot more individual. There's not really a lot of situations where you're learning about a quarterback the same way it is in the summer and in fall camp. Because, yes, there's more practices, but also what they're doing in those practices is a lot more situational. You know, okay, it's 3rd and 7, and your quarterback just needs to go make something happen, whether it's with his feet or with his legs. Do you see that moment then? They're not scrimmaging like that in spring practice. So it's less about, do I think Julian Sand or Lincoln Keenholz or Taven Sinclair have the ability to separate from one another, and more about, do I think that the environment is going to house a situation where the opportunity is going to present itself? I think the answer to that is no. I'm wondering if it's going to matter if a guy is doing so well over these 15 practices where it's obvious. Ryan Day's never gotten there with a quarterback since he's been here. They've always named him within the last 14 days of fall camp. He has said they've had conversations and they've had a leader, but they've never had a guy just outright win the job. And I am wondering, just based on the profiles that we're talking about here, could a guy force Ryan Day's hand? It doesn't matter if he does or not. Like, we're not going to – if this goes into fall camp, I don't think any of us are going to go, oh, no, is there something wrong with the quarterback battle? But if it does, we're going to go, okay, well then, because it's not that crazy to name your starting quarterback in the spring. You just mentioned Steve Sarkisian does it. Like, Lincoln Riley did it all the time with those Heisman Trophy winners. It's not that crazy to do it. It's just not what Ryan Day has done.
If you name your starting quarterback on April 12th, it probably means something really, really good has happened with your starting quarterback, because that means that guy is there. But like you just said, I don't think not naming your starting quarterback by that time means that anything's the matter. I think it's a high ceiling, but the floor is really even non-existent there. I don't think there's really like a bottom pit to that.
I'm just wondering if this is the profile that it has to look like for it to happen. One guy who's going into his 3rd year, so maybe he's just a little bit more ready than the other two are. Or another guy is a 5-star freshman who in year 2, after he's had a full year of strength and conditioning program, is ready to go. Or a true freshman who just might be him. These three just happen to have profiles that could help them separate themselves from the other two in a way that maybe you haven't had in years past. Ryan Day compared this room to 2021 when it felt like C.J. Stroud left the spring as the leader, and he didn't even get the job officially until the first couple of weeks of fall camp, and then obviously the first 2 games played out the way they are. We'll continue to talk about this on Buckeye Talks, so go listen to that wherever you find podcasts, and get the text 614-350-3315. 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. I'm Steven, that's Stefan, and that's Andrew. See ya.